Hello, welcome to the second episode of my podcast, The Padded Room. If you haven't checked it out, check out episode 1, my spoiler-tastic premiere episode featuring a complete recap of Marvel's latest offering, Doctor Strange. This episode is completely different. It's not a review, it's not any pop culture reference, so to speak. This is a reaction to a Twitter trend from, by the time this goes up, 2 weeks ago, just before Halloween, where suddenly one of our Twitter associates posted some random incident and everyone started to talk about horror stories involving jinns and spirits and other fun beings. So what we did was we collected all the best ones, not all of them, a collection, a few, a selection, shall we say, about 4, I think, and we put them all together and we talked about them. By we, I mean this is featuring myself, obviously, and Sarkhail, a friend of mine, Sarkhail Khan, and another friend, Rizwan. We are pretty old friends at this point, going back 4 or 5 years, just about. And we just went through each of the stories. The boys came up with a couple of their own, and we had a good time. It's pretty creepy, so for maximum effect, I would recommend listening to this alone in your room with the lights turned off. Without further ado, let's start the show. Welcome to episode 2, Horror Story Recap. Fair. Okay, so story number 1. I'll just repeat the story and you tell me how you feel. You might have heard this, maybe you haven't. So the story starts. There are theories anyway. Starts with theories. Matlab pehle disclaimer. My friend bought a car. He didn't know how to drive. He asked another friend to drive the car to his home. He lived far away, somewhere far away. And the friend driving the car, a Maulvi, says to the other guy, "Yaar, wo bandi dekh road ki side pe." First, a Maulvi. पहले से hypocrisy.
उन्होंने 3 दफा उसकी तरफ देखा.
नहीं, एक दफा देखा, वो देखते ही रह गए because one nazar only jais. Okay, so the other friend doesn't see anything and he says, "Tafri na kar, gaadi chal." And
this is from
Tafri na kar.
this is Tafri na kar.
Yeah.
Mind you, there are other incidents of seeing a lady there. Anyway, the Maulvi is driving, looks in the rear mirror and sees the lady coming up from behind. Achha ji.
Oh my god.
And he speeds up. The other guy doesn't see anything and he's like, "Bhai, halki chala." The one Karachite worried about traffic rules. Achha ji. Halki chala, kya jaldi hai tujhe? Anyway, as per the Maulvi, the lady vanishes and reappears moving right beside him outside the car. Interestingly, I've heard another exact version of the story from another person we know. And that moment, the guy literally goes crazy with the car, driving full speed on a bad road. The other guy isn't saying anything. He's just seeing the guy driving really fast like a crazy person. Maulvi saying, "Tujhe nahi dikh rahi." Then she vanishes. And she reappears in the back seat, and only the Maulvi can see her. And he's looking at her through the back view mirror.
Oh my god.
She likes and vanishes. Oh, acha, she smiled and I thought comment like kar liya. She smiled and vanishes. The other guy can't see anything. The Maulvi has a slight fever by the time they reach wherever they were going. And then, up say these guys, they try and avoid this road late night after that situation. Now, I heard a very similar version of this story. This was in
Me too.
Mandir. This was in Malir in Karachi. Malir is this huge deserted area. I mean, it's not deserted. A lot of people live there, but because it's a cantonment area, there's these huge patches where there's just darkness and khali plot type situation.
Yeah.
So this friend of mine was driving there with his sister. This friend who we all know, who sings weird, absurd songs about ducks.
Okay.
So this friend was going home with his sister. He lives in Malir. And he tells me that the road is dark, obviously no street lights, and there's a turn where he turns right to go towards his house. And as he's driving in the dark, because of the headlights of his car, he sees this lady, an old lady, illuminated, standing at the corner where the turn is. And he's like, hogi koi, maybe like a bhikari or something. I don't know what he thought. And then he keeps driving. And then the lady is looking at him as he turns. And then his sister was with him, and she apparently saw this too. He says that he sees her in the rearview mirror, and they're driving. Then thodi der baad dekhta hai, and she's running right beside the car, and they're driving at like 50-60 kilometers per hour. So ये ट्रैक वाले जिन जो है ना, ये बड़े हैं पाकिस्तान में. Like मैराथन में भागने वाला सीन जो है ना, but nothing happened obviously.
कंबल पहन.
हाँ.
मैं कंबल और कंबल पहन. I'm scared, bro. I'm already scared, man.
Yeah. Wear the blanket.
कंबल का क्या ताल्लुक?
Yeah, very much. Yeah, it'll protect me from everything.
Oh my god. अच्छा, okay. ये कंबल आप जमजम में धोते हैं, ये क्या मतलब है?
Wait, I'm safe now. I'm safe.
This story, I've heard many versions. Not many versions, the same story, but from many different people. The same thing happening.
Like someone's driving and it's dark and they see a woman. Most of the stories in Pakistan involve women. I'm sure there's a feminist angle about this also.
Yes. Yeah.
Jinns at dhabas. So Mazid alienation. Everyone hates us now.
You're allowed at dhabas as long as you're in another dimension.
Okay. So the stories you've heard also involve women running beside cars?
Yeah, I've heard one of this person that you've met, we somewhat know. Vicky Bhai.
Acha.
Yeah, him and his father driving on this was in Color Kahar.
Oh. Lots
and
of
Color Kahar is
things over there.
Yeah, like it's already, people talk about fairies in Color Kahar.
Acha, but fairies is like a positive name, or so that like nice.
Like they call them fairies, they call them pariyan, but they have an evil nature somehow.
Oh,
like Pichal Pari.
Yeah, that's how most of the story. Pari is like Tinkerbell. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Do you know who Tinkerbell is? Are you old enough?
Yeah, bro. She's quite hot. She's hot.
No, Sahil, no, please. Please. वैसे ही तुम्हारा image बहुत खराब है. People are very worried about these desi boys with high follower counts. So let's not.
Okay, sorry, man.
So Vicky Bhai and his father, they were driving in Color Kahar, and the story is the same. It's dark but the only difference, like, this story doesn't have the tafri and abe gaadi aisa chala. It's
because uska baap tha.
Yeah.
He's not gonna tell us that.
When it was being narrated to me, it was more like, yaar mere abbu na gaadi usse daba rahe the, pinj rahe the, yaar cut maar rahe the, pinne laga rahe the gaadi.
Okay.
So
even in a horror story, show to marna hai na fir.
Exactly. फिर यार एक औरत आई और यार मैं कलर का हार में 120 स्पीड से जा रही थी अब्बा. I have no idea how, but exactly. So yeah, nothing more to that story, I guess. But then
they also just saw this woman and she was with the car barabar mein and then baki nikal gaye.
Yeah, like they had to really pinne maar.
It's because you don't let women drive, that's why they run beside the car.
I'm telling you, that is the feminist angle. If more women were driving, female jinns would not have done sidecars. I think we have solved this issue. तो मतलब सऊदी में तो फिर ये हर कोने पे होता होगा.
नहीं bro, ये जुनैद जमशेद की वजह से इधर आए हैं.
Oh yes, Junaid Jamshed की वजह ऐसे
Yeah.
हो सकता है. Okay.
So they're either running beside the car or they're jumping over canals.
Oh, there's a canal
What?
situation also? But
There
that's
is a
only in
canal
Lahore
situation.
then.
That's
Like
only in
pole
Lahore
vault?
because where you know what a canal is, Sarkhel?
Yeah, bro. Whoa. Is that thing right? In the middle of the road,
What
like water.
what is it called in Urdu, Sarkhel?
Oh, there's an Urdu word for it?
Yep.
Canal.
बस ए हट जाता है canal.
Oh, I know.
That
It's called
that story like
Nair,
just simple,
Nair,
short.
the Nair,
That
the Nair,
Yes, Nair.
ah,
Well,
nair,
well done. Well
nair.
done. Hmm.
Nair.
But
I
this
know.
is your story,
Yeah.
right, Rizwan? You saw this happen.
Nay, this is another really good friend of mine, and it's him and his whole family in the car driving on the canal, close to Doctor's Hospital. And there are many stories close to Doctor's Hospital, at least 8-10 saal pehle.
Okay.
And this woman steps on the road in front of their car,
Right.
and they narrate that her hair is being dragged all along the road,
मतलब she has really
and
long hair.
she has really long hair, and she steps in front of the
Another common female
yeah,
Jinn
the long hair
characteristic.
thing, exactly. And she steps in front and she jumps over the canal, which is like 4 lanes wide.
Yes, it is very wide. For people who haven't been to Lahore, you know, हमारे जो
She jumps
listeners.
over the canal, gets on the other side.
And
Yep.
this is during the night or during the day? I would assume night.
This is like midnight.
Right. And were there other people on the road? Did they stop also? Or is that not part of the story?
The story is from the time when Johor town was pretty deserted anyway. So not many cars, not many people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That reminds me of the famous trees in Al Awir in Dubai.
Okay.
There's still this big roundabout in Al Awir
Hmm.
where they were like rebuilding it. They wanted new trees over there for some reason. And they started bulldozing it. This was all over Gulf News in the 90s. Like it was officially covered
Just
by the media and
clarification
everything.
for anyone who might be listening. Rizwan, Sarkhel and I all have spent most of our lives in the UAE, in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So
Yep.
that is going to feature heavily probably in any future. And
I love UAE.
we've
It
all
is the
had
best
good
country in the
and
world.
horrible experiences in the UAE.
UAE number one.
Yeah, UAE, wallahi.
Wallahi, UAE
Okay,
number
so
one.
they were bulldozing the trees, and this was in Gulf News.
They were bulldozing the trees to like rebuild the roundabout, and there was just one group of trees that whenever they would try to bulldoze it, the bulldozer would shut down. And then like most of the workers were Desi, so they got suddenly superstitious. Oh, there's something. And like how the story goes is that their main guy, the main guy was a Gora.
Mr. Bulldozer.
And he was like, yeah, exactly. Mr. Bulldozer was a Gora.
Hmm.
And he laughed at them. He's like,
Dugna lagan dega.
Exactly. So he got into the bulldozer himself and said, like, I'll show you how it's done. And the bulldozer caught fire.
Oh shit! Jahannam ki aag.
Exactly.
Oh
and
shit!
and
So,
then
did he die?
then Gulf. No, he didn't die. Like he jumped off. It's a bulldozer. It's not a jail cell.
Right.
That's sad.
Once you
Jump
get on, you never
Disappointing.
get off.
And then like the newspapers and media team, they started getting into this. They started investigating the history of the place.
Okay.
And they found out that there are graves of some Jelani family people from the past under those trees.
Okay.
And the government put a fence around that group of trees. And then
It's a roundabout now, right? I think I know this place.
it is no, there is like they were already on a roundabout, so the roundabout is still there, and there are new trees all over it, except a small group of trees that's surrounded by a fence now.
Oh.
And hamare desi, they started putting green chadre on the fences. That's what they did. Yeah, me and my dad both seen it. They're standing there, duaएं and green chadre.
बेटियों को ला रहे हैं, शादी नहीं हो रही. फौरन देसियों ने तो काबू कर लेना है कि हाँ यहाँ कुछ सीन है, अपना फायदा निकालो.
Exactly. So the jinns are probably not there anymore. They just took them
Too
out.
many desis.
Exactly. They could have just deported the jinns, like go back.
Go back to where you came from. Go back to life.
I mean,
Okay.
I understand. I'm mixing the terms of jinn and the like spirit that might be there from a real person,
Right, right, right,
but
right, right.
I'm sure we all get the point.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. We all get the point. Now, this is also a Karachi story. Story goes that there's this place near Karsaz, or used to be. It was rumored to be haunted and looked downright scary. One Ramzan cricket night, another Pakistani fixture, a bunch of us, aged 10 to 16, decided to break into it. A very Karachi harkat to do.
Age 10 to 16.
10 to 16. और 10 साल का बच्चे का भी कितना आइडिया था ये. One was on cricket night. They tried to break into it. They managed to get over the gate before someone lit his flashlight. They had a flashlight with them. Very well equipped teenagers.
Yeah.
Understandably, dust everywhere. And one fresh set of footprints, which headed to through the main door. So they assumed it must be a chowkidar. No big deal. There were at least 3 cricket bats on us. तो मतलब protection थी. चौकीदार आता तो उसको बैट से मार देते. तो why are you doing your job? So we opened
Ye
the
lord
main-
have.
So we opened the main door, which was where they ended abruptly in the room, the footprints. Suddenly, every one of us freaked out. We ran outside, back on the street, where we exchanged versions. And literally everyone had seen or felt something different. Someone saw an old guy, someone saw a scary lady, someone saw a monster. I could have sworn I heard a baby laughing. Another guy said he must have heard something muttered in Arabic. The weirdest thing was it happened to everyone at the same time and no one pretended they weren't terrified. Anyways, सबको आयतल कुर्सी याद आ गई थी after that. Oh shit, this story is legit. मतलब के खैर, I don't know. They were all kids.
Who told?
A friend of ours, someone we also know. So काफी senior Twitter personality हैं ये. But yeah, so this is pretty crazy. And this guy is much older than us. So if this is probably early 2000, not even early 2000, probably 90s का scene है ये. So yeah, so
Wow, now you're outing him as an old guy now.
senior citizen,
Yeah.
senior Twitter citizen.
90s, no, 90s Dubai had a lot of stories that were covered by the media. Like
Really?
crazy.
But then
stuff.
that's because उस वक्त
Like-
there weren't many people there either, right?
And there was
Exactly,
no Netflix either, so.
And the stories were like supported by the government as actual stories and warning people to stay away from places and stuff.
Oh, nice.
Like that. Do you guys know or remember the apartment family murder story?
No.
What?
Ah, okay. That was
I
during
lived
the
in Karama.
90s.
I think
Yeah,
we all lived in
I've
Karama.
also lived in Karama. Yeah, we've all lived in Karama.
Everyone
at
in the
some point.
UAE has lived in Karama at one
Exactly.
point or the other.
So there was this Desi family that was murdered by one of their domestic, what do you call them? House help.
Okay.
What's the PC word for that?
Servant, slave.
Yeah,
Yeah,
break
they're
it, Chopra.
slaves. Like one of their slaves.
उनके गुलाम
So-
ने उनका खून कर दिया.
And like it started like the first kid got home from school with his cricket bat and the servant took the bat and killed him.
Wow.
With
Oh,
the-
sleep
A
shot.
bat is a dangerous weapon. Even
Exactly.
7
With
sleep
the
shot
bat.
mari thi?
yeah.
And then his sister, then the mother, then the father.
Shit.
Like they kept coming home, and he killed all of them.
Wow.
And then the story started after a few months. Like everybody started trying to move into the apartment.
Mm.
They would see a child standing in the bathroom when they're brushing, and like people walking into the bedrooms.
Wow.
So for many years, nobody took that up. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh shit.
What is this background
Yeah.
noise?
What is this
Rizwan?
background? Jinn mein piche se bol rahe hain.
That's my
Which is-
wife.
Oh shit, you're
Oh,
married?
okay.
When did this happen?
What?
Assalamu alaikum,
Yeah.
Rizwan. Shit. Okay,
No,
but now
she is kind of she's getting freaked out because we have a fresh horror story we heard a couple of
Oh,
hours ago.
Taza Tareen. Okay, we'll get to your crazy horror stories at the end
Exactly.
because
Let's move to the next story. Yeah.
let's move to the next story. Okay, this is a story from one person in this thread has 3 stories. So we're not going to give him any more attention. Famous now, yeah. Okay,
हाँ तुझसे
so
ज्यादा followers ना मिल जाए उसको.
वो तो मेरा ख्याल है बिल्कुल भी कोई कमाल नहीं होगा. Anyway, so another story. Now this story is not from someone who has experienced it himself/herself. This is suni hui kahani. So this one story I heard from a friend who heard it from a very shaken friend, already twice removed. This is the freakiest of them all. A friend of a friend lived in Mao Gardens. I'm assuming this is Lahore, which are
Where? What garden?
Mao.
Mayo Gardens.
Or
Yeah,
is it
yeah.
Mayo. Well, he spelled it Mao.
Yeah, it's Mayo. It's Mayo. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Really?
So Mayo Gardens, which are British era giant old ass houses with high ceilings and lots of trees.
Yep. Beautiful, beautiful houses, beautiful community. Yeah.
Okay. Stop selling real estate where people are haunted.
No, it's given to employees of the railway
Okay.
department.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what happened is friend of friend lived there. The friend got married and his wife kept nagging him to shift houses as there was something in that house. The guy never saw anything. He refused. Wife got pissed and left one day. The guy is 6'4". Oh, this is this story. The guy is 6'4", hot-headed, started shouting in the house. This is the highlight of this thread.
Yeah, this is.
No, are you actually reading from it or?
No, now.
Yeah.
Ab statement jo hai na, this is
Just say
the
the quote,
best
just say it.
statement I've ever heard. Kithe ho zinaniyan nu tang kar de ho.
What?
The friend shouted. Oh, kithe ho zinaniyan nu tang kar de ho. All of a sudden, nothing happened. ये कैसी बात? All of a sudden, nothing happened.
Who has written this story?
Yeah, this person who really does not want to be named. I spoke to this person. I said, "Okay, do you want to come on this, do on the podcast?" And he's like, "No," because he wants to stay anonymous.
Give me a
Yeah, I
hint.
really want to eat some rice.
Yeah, chaval sa bana.
Yeah.
You want to eat sunrise?
No.
All of a sudden, nothing happened. He calms down and goes to his room after a few hours. When he comes down, I don't know the chronological order of this. The lights
Okay.
start flickering, and when they turn back on, this gets crazy. When they turn back on, he sees a lot of people and shadows crawling on the walls and ceiling of the house, climbing down, moving
Whoa.
towards him. Oh shit! Shadow. But yeah. Kithe ho zinaniyan nu tang kar de ho. I'm sure this is a really horrific story for whoever I'm to, but that statement.
I'm sure like Sean has probably said this in like a Punjabi movie.
Zanane nu zanana nahi mare or something.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And
Okay.
yeah, I've never heard of such a shadow on the wall moving towards you kind of situation. I've seen it in some movies. But yeah, another typical situation though, a setting very common in horror stories in Pakistan, old place, Angrezon ke zamane ki building, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
And walls. I've heard a lot of stories surrounding walls.
Like the ice cream?
Like things. Oh,
so block you on the podcast. Unfriend, unfollow. तुम्हारी शादी तोड़वाता हूँ मैं अभी.
actually,
are
I had that in my mind that one of you is going to mention it. So it was a shame.
Well,
Yeah, back to adults.
I won't let you down, man.
Yeah, please let us down.
Yeah.
No.
But yeah, walls also feature in a lot of stories. There's stuff coming out of wall.
Moving on to the final story from our friend जो आम से बाज नहीं आती. Her story.
Shit.
What?
Yeah, bro, mango. So
Oh.
yes. I haven't asked her either,
Yeah.
but because I haven't asked her, she might be okay with it, but I'm still not gonna mention her by
But there are a lot of
good name.
Yeah, there are a lot of people working in that group.
Okay, हमने
So,
ऐसे बचा
the
लिया अपने
end-
आप को. तो उसकी बात कर रहे थे. Okay. So, okay, well, since everybody is doing it, here's my story and the one I've been trying to avoid talking about because I'm scared shitless. Yeah, this is a very serious story.
Oh
Of
yeah, this is the scariest one.
Yeah, a few months back, came back home from something. We usually put all the keys in my grandparents' room. Now it's like 5 to 6 p.m., broad daylight. I get home to put the keys in my nani's room when I notice that she has company. I see a glimpse of a dark-skinned, balding man sitting next to her. The TV is blaring. I'm in no mood to make conversation. So I just keep my keys and I go to my room, start watching some show or something. A good 40 minutes later, my nanny comes to my room and inquires why I didn't announce that I was home. I was like, Nanny, I'm in jeans. I didn't want to come in front of the guests or whatever. And she's like, what guests? It's only your Nana and I in the other room. I tell her I saw that man. I describe him and everything, and she remains quiet. I dismiss the whole thing, judging from her nonchalance. Sentence ending nowhere. Forward a couple days, my nanny comes and sits next to me. She has a grave expression, so I put my phone away and ask her what's up. You know, it's serious when a girl puts her phone away. Very calmly, she asks me again about the man I saw with her the other day. Now I'm visibly annoyed. Nanny, stop. This isn't funny. Either way, I give her a description again, and what she tells me next blows my brains out. She tells me, Rip, she tells me that last night she was rudely awoken at 2 to 3 a.m. and she's figure brooding over her, a man with the exact description. Short, dark and balding with piercing eyes. She starts reciting Ayatul Kursi. This continues for 40 minutes straight. The presence was brooding over her for that long while she continued praying, after which it just disappeared. She assures me that she's spoken to someone about it and they're praying and reciting to us, and whatever it was is gone now. Okay. Sarkhel, पड़ गई तुम्हारी.
Bro, वैसी.
But then again, yeah, it could have been a story that a lot of people talk about if it was only the person sleeping who saw that. You know, like sleep paralysis that everybody says.
Yes.
But
there were quite a
yeah,
few
this
stories.
was seen by two people.
Yeah, this was and this was the sleep paralysis thing was quite a common theme in all the stories that were being
All
posted.
around the world, yeah.
Yeah. Many people talked about it that day, that they woke up in the night, they felt a presence, often on their chest, which is very common.
Yep.
I've read about it all over the internet.
Yeah.
And so yeah, उन्होंने खुद ही वो कर दिया था उसको, क्या नाम है, disregard कि maybe this is that, but then this can't be just that because this person, there are two people
Was sitting in their drawing room,
living room में बैठे थे, and ladies jeans में थी, and उन्होंने कहा कि ये तो बदतमीजी हो जाए, but yeah, pretty creepy. But then you also have a similar story, but that's not sleep. That's the story with your brother. He wasn't sleeping when he'd gone to someone's house for a shadi and then didn't go to the shadi. That situation.
Oh, no, he was wide awake.
Yeah, during the whole incident.
Yeah.
And he slept during the incident.
He slept during the incident. He was like, fuck it.
You gonna talk about the incident?
You haven't heard about it, sir?
I don't.
Or probably have, but the listeners haven't.
Oh, the listeners. I don't know. Rizwan, do you want to talk about it?
The listeners.
Samin.
Yeah, I could talk about it in a short way.
Okay, because you have a couple stories of your own. But yeah, our time is no consequence.
Yeah, like. So yeah, it's one of my elder brothers, and
There's one has two brothers.
I have two brothers. Yeah, I'll give you more information about me so you can track me down.
Yes.
Where I am. So it's one of my many elder brothers.
15. He has 15 elder brothers. Okay.
So he visits Karachi. This is around the year 2000, so pretty long back.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I didn't know anything about Karachi at that time, so I don't remember the details where he was staying, but it was a friend's house.
Okay.
He was attending his friend's wedding, and he tells me it was a triple-story house. And Mehndi ka din tha, it was a Mehndi, and he didn't want to go because he didn't feel like shaving.
Yes, a very valid reason to not go to
Very
a mehndi.
valid. Exactly. So he skipped the Mehndi. It was late night. The whole family, everyone left, and his room was at the top of the house, the top floor, the third floor,
Right.
and everyone left. The whole house is dark downstairs. They've locked the doors and left. He's alone in his room upstairs. The light is on. He decides, okay, let me start unpacking because I'm here for a week. So he starts unpacking, and there's a balcony in the room, and the door is open, and he's like from what do you call it? From the corner of his eye, he sees this old woman sitting in the balcony. And when he looks directly at the balcony, he can't see her.
Right.
So he starts unpacking again, and again from the side he can see the woman. So
every time he looks away, he feels that there's an old woman sitting.
Exactly, an old woman sitting
Like in his
balcony.
peripheral vision.
Yeah,
Big
exactly.
words.
What
Yeah,
he
bro.
does, what he does is what I would have done would have been jumped from that balcony, but he walks to
Jumped from that balcony. There's a ghost. Let me kill myself.
Exactly. Let me join you. You know? So
He must be lonely.
he walks to the balcony and he closes the door. And he comes back and sits on the bed to start unpacking. And now she's sitting inside the room.
Wow.
Inside. So the
But
door
he
is
still
closed
can't
and
see her. Matlab, in like the corner of a room again, he's getting the vibe.
Exactly. Like he can see her, but if he directly looks at her, she just vanishes.
Right.
So at this point, he's like, "Wow, screw unpacking," and he covers his head with the blanket and he starts praying and tries to sleep. And what he says, it took him a few hours. Like he couldn't sleep. It was just hours through the night, and somebody kept tugging the blanket every few minutes. Somebody was laughing, and
shit.
he just kept praying, and then he fell asleep.
Yeah.
And that's it. So
Very,
it was
very
brother-
offensive to jinns all over.
Exactly.
सो गया ये? कोई तमीज होती है.
This is a Punjabi jinn, huh?
Yeah, in Karachi.
In Karachi, yeah. तमीज होती है कोई.
बहुत आ रहे हैं
What
यार.
बगैर था जनानी नु तंग कर.
बगैर था. कितने हो? But yeah, that was a very creepy. And it is from your very serious older brother, one of 15.
My oldest brother and the Karachi incident brother and me, we share a story in Dubai,
Yes.
in Sharjah, to be precise.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was less of seeing something, but feeling and hearing things.
Yeah, that was just a weird
Yeah.
situation to be in. अब आपने शुरू कर ही दिया.
Exactly.
Please.
Yeah, because I've always never really believed in all of this, and I still pretty much don't. I'm like, okay, as long as I don't see anything, it doesn't exist.
So there's one and a pigeon. Very similar.
Exactly. So, well, we were sharing an apartment in Sharjah at that time. Again, a very deserted place of Sharjah, one of the industrial areas.
Right.
And my brother's wife got us these African masks
Right.
from these wooden masks that you put on walls. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, like for decoration, sort of.
Yeah. So,
Cultural appropriation थी वैसे ये अगर देखा जाए
Like
तो.
that mask from Crash Bandicoot. I don't know
so
if you
my
know
brother's
this.
wife gives us these wooden masks, and out of courtesy, we have to put them up on the walls.
Right.
Yeah, when she's there, she knows to give you appreciating gift.
Right.
And
And to prove you're not racist.
Bro, I'm not racist. I have so many African masks. I'm completely not racist. Some of my best masks are African.
Look at these masks.
Okay, that's very racist. Shame on you.
Shut up.
Yeah. Okay.
okay, and then the weird stuff starts happening. From the next day onward, like every night at 2 a.m., all three of us, we start waking up.
Right.
And
Specifically
I'm
2 a.m.
sharing it's exactly 2 a.m.,
Okay.
not even a minute after that. It's
Right.
2 a.m. whenever we wake up. And I'm looking at my brother. I was sharing a room with my brother.
Mm.
I'm looking at him. He's looking, and from the other room, my other brother's like, he's calling our names and saying, "Are you guys okay?"
Mm.
We're like, "Yeah," and then we fall asleep.
No
This
explanation as
keeps
to why
happening.
you've woken up.
Yeah, and but then we start noticing it when it happens for a few days. The
Right.
exact same thing, waking up at 2 a.m.
Right.
And then one night at 2 a.m., we all wake up again, and I'm just drowsy. I'm looking at my brother. He's also woken up, and then a phone starts ringing,
Yeah.
and a landline phone.
Mm.
It's not a mobile phone. It's this landline ring ringing,
Mm.
and my brothers are like, "Phone uthao, what are you waiting for?" They're calling me to pick up the phone, and I get off the bed, and then I realize we don't have a landline.
Yeah, ये crazy scene था इसमें.
Exactly. Well, then eventually it turned out it was the intercom, and somebody was
And ये भी एक crazy letdown था फौरन.
exactly somebody was pressing the intercom bell downstairs. But again, 2 a.m.
Right.
And I answered the intercom. I said, "Hello, who's there?" Nobody answered.
And how did you resolve this situation? ये भी तो बताओ.
It was me and my Karachi incident brother, and we took down the masks, put them in a black garbage bag, and with a hammer we started breaking them, filmy
Yeah.
style.
Slow motion montage. पीछे
Yeah.
fuck the police चल रहा है.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Broke
And
all of them and threw them away. And after that, we stopped waking up at 2 a.m.
nice, nice.
It's all psychological,
Yeah,
isn't
yeah,
it?
it's all in our mind until it's real. Chalo. So now we've discussed the Twitter stories and then we've discussed the brother stories. How about you? The dream you used to have is one. सर खेल ने तो नहीं सोना आज.
Bro, मेरे पास भी एक story है वैसे.
तुम्हारी मैंने अच्छा
Seriously,
okay.
why don't you start,
Yeah,
Sahil?
you
I'm
tell
thinking
us
a lot.
your story. Already we're super skeptical.
I promise it's not shit.
Okay.
Okay.
So much pressure.
Okay, so गांव में शादी हो रही थी, ठीक है?
Yeah.
And my cousin was in one of my uncles had built a house, and उसमें already काफी they felt a lot of like weird shit going around, lots of
They
different
picked a house or they built a
noises.
house?
Yeah, they built a house,
Okay, they
right?
built a house. Okay.
And when
Okay.
they started staying there, they felt like they felt like they're being watched a lot, and you know, random doors closing and shutting. ये वो बकवास, ठीक है ना? So शादी वाला एक कहीं उधर ही साथ वाले घर में शादी थी,
English, please. English.
and oh sorry, my bad.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a wedding in the house next door, and
Yeah.
these guys had vacated the house by then because they were scared of living there. They
Okay.
felt a really bad vibe and they vacated it. And because there was a wedding, the guests needed a place to stay. So
Right.
my cousins, they were like, "Yo, let's do it. Let's just sleep in one of those rooms. Doesn't matter. We're not scared of anything."
In this horror
So
story movie, this cousin was like the white teenagers who are like, yeah, it's all
yeah,
fake, bro.
yeah, he's the jock. He's literally the jock.
He's
Yeah,
gonna die
he's trying
first.
to impress the. Yeah, so one of the rooms had nothing, just like 4 charpais and one of those huge ass deep freezers
Okay.
and
Wow.
the gas
इसमें
gas
लाशें
heater.
थी.
बिस्तर पे आपको जगह ना मिले तो आप फ्रीजर में सो जाए.
Oh, shit. So okay, it had a gas heater.
Okay.
You know, the ones that are like the size of a small laptop, I guess, or
Right.
yeah. And that had जो the gas की pipe नहीं होती, that's connected into the wall, ठीक है? That was quite long. So they fell asleep, obviously talking about the stories and जैसे हम बात कर रहे हैं, जिन की कहानियां सुना रहे हैं एक दूसरे को.
Right.
My cousin woke up in the middle of the night, and like he felt like, you know, the sleep paralysis thing,
Right.
and he felt like he couldn't move, and he started shouting for help. Everyone else woke up. They came to him. The guy, he was wrapped around in the gas pipe of the heater, with the heater sitting on his chest.
Shit.
The heater was sitting on his chest.
Oh shit.
And you saw that?
No, I wasn't there. I wasn't there. I was at
Oh,
home, but this is like my khala, my chacha. These guys all saw it.
Wow.
So
that's heavy.
How cold was it?
I mean, it wasn't on. It was, yeah, it was not. It was just kept there like a storage thing. गर्मियों का मौसम था,
Right.
but it was just on the side. Otherwise, वरना वो क्या पाइप निकाल के उसने पहले गैस बंद की है फिर पता उसको.
Safety first. Only you invent house fires. But chalo,
हाँ ना, jinns will.
Well, considering they're made of fire.
yeah, don't be casual about this because people will hate us. Okay.
BTC.
But damn, son. Hello, good story, Sarkhail. Well done.
Yeah,
Once,
nice man.
for once, you didn't disappoint us.
Yeah, that got a reaction out of me. Like I sat up.
Yeah. Now you are outside a beanbag. Hopefully. Because if you're still inside, then how big is this beanbag? We must know.
Now Rizwan's story.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
now
sorry.
there's one's old story, and after which we have. You can tell us whichever story is scarier first, or less scary first. The new one that you just heard today, or your historical.
Like today's story felt scary when we were listening to it because we know the person really well, and
Okay.
she's a very, like she's one of those very intelligent, hardworking. I don't know how to.
Well, she's got a
Profile
good
her.
head on her shoulder. She's not like a crazy
Yeah,
person.
exact. Like a university topper, and she has a very good job and stuff. So
So not
And-
someone stupid. Koi bonga nahi hai. Not that we're saying that anyone else whose story we might have mentioned was stupid.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So she's one of the most like level-headed persons that I know and stuff. So she's telling us the story today that she works at the government. Okay, so
Right.
she gets posted in different cities.
ISI. ये story इंडिया में हुई है.
Yeah, it's a very raw horror story. So she was posted in Faisalabad last year.
Okay.
And she was given a house by the government, and
Right.
she was staying alone, just like a guard and a driver who would sleep outside the house. And then she saw something thrice over a few days. This, as soon as she would get into bed, first time she saw it, her room was dark. So she saw something a dark figure standing next to the bathroom door, and she just started reciting Ayatul Kursi, and she ignored it and she slept. She said, okay, I'm sleepy, it's dark. And, she's trying to tell herself it's nothing. It's just something that she saw.
Right.
She was sleepy. And then the next time it happens, she's getting scared now that, okay, she's sleeping with the lights on. And she gets into bed. She's just gotten into bed, and she hears a huge blast.
Oh shit.
Like her room shakes, and there's a huge explosion, like a huge blast. Only the sound, no physical effects. And as soon as she hears the blast, she sees a dark figure going out of her bedroom door. Yep. And she gets out of the bedroom. She runs out to the guard and asks, "What was the blast?" And he says, "What blast? There was nothing." And then the third time, it's like she's working in the kitchen, and there's a counter in the middle. And there's a bowl in the middle of the counter, and she sees the bowl just go and crash on the floor. And again, a dark figure exiting the room, like a dark shadow kind of thing. So, yeah, that's about it. She's moved to Lahore now, thankfully. So now, I guess Lahori jinns would be more friendly.
जिंदा दिलाने.
How do you know?
Zinda jalane.
But wow, that is a freaky story.
Yeah,
Holy shit. So this is how long ago?
this was a year ago.
Oh shit, so it's recent.
She told us the story today, so it's pretty
Wow.
weird.
Okay, chalo. Well, at least she's safe now.
Oh, there's another aspect to this I forgot.
Oh, okay, shit.
After the
what was-
second
You met this person. You met the jinn. मैं भूल ही गया कैप्टिव ऑटोनॉमी में ये जिन आ चुका है. ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट
After the
तस्वीरें सारी
second
तुम्हारी
incident-
डार्क शैडोवी फिगर दिखना नहीं है.
So after the second incident, the next morning, she calls her husband, who is stationed in another city. She calls her husband, and before she narrates the incident, he tells her the same thing happened with him in his bedroom.
No.
Oh shit! At the same time.
No.
It's the same night.
Oh
What the fuck?
shit!
Exactly.
That's messed up.
And that is messed up. That's pretty weird. So I generally find explanations for all this shit, but I don't know, man.
मतलब हमने sleep paralysis सोचा फिर now there are two people in a sleep paralysis situation and now there is two cities.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's getting crazy.
Wow.
बढ़ते जा रहे हैं ये हालात आजकल. माशरे में बेहयाई जो फैल गई है ना.
ये जो रिजवान जीन्स पहनता है ना इसलिए.
जीन्स की पैंट.
jeans मैंने कब पहनी है?
हाँ, रिजवान is 100%.
Do you guys remember that? Do you guys remember वो एक दफा एक PTA की रैली हो रही थी and they interviewed some Pinto
Yes.
कि किस तरह के लोग आए हुए हैं. कहते हैं जी यहाँ हर कोई आया हुआ है, यहाँ पिंटो वाली बच्चे भी आई हुई हैं.
पेंटो वाली. कुछ something about लम्स के लोग भी आए हुए हैं ऐसा कुछ सीन था ना.
पिंटो वाली बच्ची आई.
Pent, P-E-N-T, a very important distinction between regular pants and pants.
पिंटो.
Pinto वाली बच्ची है.
Pinto
Yeah,
वाली
that's a
बच्ची.
social group.
Yeah, it's a movement.
And sad happen.
Pent up feelings. Okay, चले जी इख्तिताम वाली story. Rizwan, please.
What story is that?
I have a dream.
Oh, acha, yeah, Martin. Okay, no.
Lawrence.
Kapoor. Okay. Okay. So, my personal story that I've experienced doesn't really involve any jinn bhoot.
Right. It's just
But
a freaky incident.
It's a freaky. It involves a dream. It's when I was young, हमारे ज़माने में, you know,
This is
I
like
used
in
to get
early
this-
80s की बात है ये.
yeah. When I was young, I was a little kid, like, you know,
That's
2000.
usually how it works.
Mad, bro.
When I was
How
young,
did
I
you
was a
manage?
kid.
How did you manage? How did you manage that, man?
I was pretty young. I was 8 years old, so it was
Wow.
probably like 93.
So
And,
पैदा भी नहीं हुआ था.
Shut
That
up. I was
is
born in
true.
91.
Sahil
91,
was born
okay.
in 91, okay. सारी बुढ़ी बच्चियां जो बच्चे हो जाएं.
91 had a Khan versus Khan concert in Dubai on New Year's Eve. Salman Khan versus Amir Khan.
But did they fight?
Sarkhil, did you attend it?
वहीं पैदा हुआ था ये.
Why?
Oh shit.
So okay, my story. So it's 93. I'm an 8-year-old kid, and I have this recurring dream
Right.
where there's darkness, but
Right.
there are these colorful blocks that keep building up into a wall, and as the wall keeps growing, it starts getting bigger. I stop losing my breath, and
You start losing
there's
your
this
breath.
weight. Yeah, there's this weight increasing on my chest, and there's a male voice commanding the blocks to increase and build into a wall.
Right.
And it's a language that I don't understand. It's this harsh male voice just screaming, and as he keeps screaming, the blocks keep building up, and the wall starts growing higher.
Fucking Trump.
And then I wake up, start screaming, and that happened over several years. It started when I was 7 or 8, and it went on till I was like 12 or 13.
Okay.
And I never talked about what the dream was. When I would wake up and my mom and dad would ask me what happened, and I would just say, I don't know, I'm just scared and
Actually,
dar
you'd wake
lag
up
raha hai.
from your sleep as a result.
Yeah, I would wake up from my sleep and I would start screaming. And then sometimes I would have hallucinations when I would wake up. Like from that same dream, I would see these colorful animals and colorful blocks again building in my room. So I would start screaming and then they would calm me down. I'd be okay. I'd be okay in a few minutes. But then it kept happening over the years. So my parents said, okay, let's take you to some buzurg and take you to a mosque. You just start
ये
praying and all that.
आवाज में आप डिस्डेन सुन रहे हैं सामीन, ये इनको हुजूर में यकीन नहीं था बिल्कुल.
It didn't help, but the dreams just stopped
Okay.
themselves. Like when I grew up, they just stopped. And then just a couple of years ago, I'm sitting with my eldest sister and we're discussing horror stories just like this, like we are. And she just asked me, oh, you used to get scared in your sleep and you would wake up screaming. What did you see? You never talked about it. You never told us what dream, what were you seeing? Why were you screaming?
Right.
And strangely, we never talked about it for many years. And I started describing the dream to her just like I was right now. The building blocks, the colors, and the male voice. And as I'm narrating the dream, she's freaking out and she starts crying.
Okay.
I ask her, like, I'm sure, what the hell, what's going on? And she tells me she's been having the same dream for years. That it keeps coming to her every few months.
The exact same dream.
The exact same dream.
And this is your older sister, one of your
This
12 sisters.
Yeah. Exactly. One of my 12 sisters, and she's pretty mature. She heads a school in Lahore, and so it's again one person that I would say just made up a story sitting there.
Yeah.
That was pretty freaky.
And you saw her
she
reaction
said,
also. Matlab, you saw her visibly.
I saw the reaction as I was narrating the story. I saw her face like going pale, and she starts crying, and then she screams and says, "Don't talk about it." She was literally screaming, and she said, "Okay, stop, stop, stop! Don't talk about it." And then we never talked about it again. So that's pretty
until she
weird.
hears this podcast.
Oh my god!
Please don't. ये जरा सुने क्या बातें कर रही है बॉयज. जूते ही जूते उसके बाद. But yeah, so that was a crazy story, which you did not
That's the
post.
craziest thing I've experienced, I guess. I haven't seen anything ever. So it's always somebody else who's telling me they've seen something. So.
Yeah. But then we also know this one other guy who mentioned that story also, I think in Pakistan. The engineer person who had these crazy stories. Remember?
The engineer person.
Yeah, a friend of our friends.
Ah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I forgot he's an engineer.
बेचारा इतने साल लगाया उसने.
I'm also an engineer, don't forget me.
What is his story? What did he talk about?
His story, remember where he was I don't know, he was playing cricket, yeah, wo pata nahi, he was smoking or something, and then he heard this screaming voice in the distance and started getting closer, and the lights started going out.
I remember that, and they were a group of friends, and this screaming voice started getting closer to them, and from a field, and they ran into their apartment's lift, and as soon as the lift's doors closed, there was banging on the lift doors, and they all ran upstairs.
Yeah,
oh man!
They ran in the lift.
They ran in the lift.
जल्दी जल्दी बटन दबाओ ना तो वो जल्दी जाती है ऊपर.
Sahil hasn't really talked much today.
Well,
Bro,
there are few blessings in this world, and one of them is when Sahil doesn't really talk much. But yeah, well, good talk, guys.
Bro, can someone come and hold my hand?
Your hand is, are you sure? Is that what you want held?
Really, bro,
Yeah, bro.
do not wish for that.
Someone will come and hold your hand.
Okay.
No, don't fuck with me like that, man. Shit. That ain't cool.
हाँ पता चलो
You
जिस
were
बॉय
not
के साथ तुम रह रहे
alone.
हो वो आ जाएगा हाथ पकड़ने रात को तुम्हारा
Oh God.
Yeah, but good job,
I-
guys. Very scary stories.
Were our stories freaky enough?
I think our stories were pretty. I think your story was pretty crazy. You didn't post it on that day when everyone was posting a story. But if people do listen to this, I think they will be suitably creeped out. And,
I hope so.
बस
By our voices.
fame मिल जाए बस.
Ali just wants followers really, really badly.
Yes, please like me.
Please
I think
subscribe
you
me.
can just stop. You can stop recording now, and then we can talk each other to sleep.
No, I'm sitting at a desk. I don't want to sleep here.
No, you'll sleep here. You'll wake up somewhere else.
But chalo, thank you very much. I think I shall stop recording now. Oh yeah, do you want to do you want to tell everyone about your Twitter handles so people can follow you and ask you questions or yell at you for being derisive of their stories?
No.
Yeah.
No? Sarghel, really?
I'm really
bro.
confident.
Yeah, I'm really confident I can shit on your story. Very confident. तुम सब पागल हो मैं 2 लोगों को जानता हूँ वो बिल्कुल level headed everyone's an idiot. For more Q&A about our scary stories or other matters or Zarurat-e-Rishta or whatever, Rizwan is, what is your handle, Rizwan?
At Rizwan Pahalwan.
And Sarkhel?
At Sarkhel 7 Khan.
Sarkhel 7 Khan. The 7 is for David Beckham?
Yeah.
Chalo, mashallah.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is, buddy. It's not...
I've always thought it's some Arabic ha or something.
Sarkhel
Also,
Khan.
I can only count to 7.
No, it's like Sarkhel Khan. I always thought it was that. This is new.
My handle is at... What is my handle? The Mahal Upper. My handle is The Mahal Upper. And please follow us, like us, make us feel good. And thank you for... Bye-bye.